Okay, let me go over some map editor basics that I feel will benefit a lot of players here. So one of the issues that players are going to run into when they're making their maps is that they might want some more fine-tuned control over specific things. For example, when I box select stuff on the map, you'll notice that it's going to select the map itself as well. Um, while you're editing objects, you often don't want your map selected. So what you can do is go all the way to the bottom of the list, and this is your map. Like it's always going to have the name of your map, HD2, and the size of the map. If you click this little arrow icon so that it looks like this, it's going to make it so that you cannot select your map, so that you are free to select the objects within that map. That means that it's really easy to just go in and box select stuff just like that. And one other issue that you might run into is like, as I'm panning around the viewport, you'll notice that as I hold the Alt key and left click drag, it's it's rotating relative to like my current spot. So if I zoom out and do that, it's not pivoting around the thing that I'm interested in. So one thing that you're going to be doing frequently, and you're probably going to want to use the hotkey for this, but you can actually go up here into view and go frame selected. So if I select a bunch of stuff and then go frame selected, it will center my pivoting relative to that area. And if I hold shift and click, it'll pan around just like that. I can also box select anything, frame selected, or frame all, or whatever, and then do it like that. So now my view is centered around this area of interest. So with that in place, let's dig a little deeper. So the other problem that we have is that like all of the scrap on this map looks really tiny. It's hard for me to get a very clear visual on like what my scrap distribution is at a glance. So what I'm actually going to do is select every single object in the scene, and we're going to scale everything up. Now, if I go to the scale tool and try to scale it, you're going to get this behavior. This is not what we want. So I'm going to undo that. So these two buttons right here kind of dictate what the behavior of the gizmos are going to be. Like, do you want it to scale relative to like the entire extent of your selection, or do you want it to like take each individual object and scale them like individually without moving them? You have control over that. So what I'm going to do is click on here, and right now it is currently set to median point. I'm going to switch this to individual origins. So now when I scale everything up, everything is going to stay in place, but everything is going to get larger. Okay, so I'm actually going to undo that, and let's say that I only want to select the scrap here. So what I'm actually going to do is expand my game objects category or collection here, and I'm going to type in the word scrap. So this is going to show us just the objects that have the word scrap in them, and I'm just going to select the top one, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and then shift click the last one, and now I only have the scrap selected. Now I can scale this up, and I'm just grabbing this outer white ring here and click dragging away. So now I have a really good idea of where my scrap is just distributed. Battlezone ignores scale. Like this scaling will not be seen in the game, but I do find scaling useful for being able to preview at a bird's eye glance, what my distribution looks like. So now let's do another thing. Let's say that, you know what, I only want the top half of my map to I only want the top half of my map to have scrap in it. So I can just click, drag, select here. And now doing this will also select the geysers, which are denoted by these pyramid things. So we can deselect objects in a similar way that we selected them. So if I type in geyser here, I can actually see all of the geysers that I have selected. So I type in geyser, press enter, and then I can actually just control click these off. Whatever geysers are selected, I just don't want them in place. So now none of the geysers are selected because I deselected the geysers with the search and control click. So now I can just hit the delete key and get rid of them. Now the top half of the map has no scrap on it. Let's pretend that this map was actually symmetrical. So I'll just drag select here, deselect these geysers. I don't want any of these selected. So I'm holding control and clicking these so that they're not selected. Okay, I'm going to hold shift and press D and then click to confirm. And now I can actually rotate this like so. Now, I'm rotating this, but you notice that things are rotating in place. This is because we set this to individual origin. I'm actually going to set this to bounding box center. So now everything is rotating together. And if you want more precise rotations, you can hold control while doing this and clicking on the blue handle so that it'll rotate in increments of like, I think it's 5 degrees. Okay. So now I can just shove this to the top of the map and we have identical distribution. Though this map is asymmetrical, so you kind of have to account for that and kind of shove stuff around and whatnot. One other thing that I want to cover. Let's say that I want to take like an entire row of scrap here, and I want to squeeze these things together. Like I want to take this and just move these things closer together. What we can do is we'll leave it as bounding box center for our our origin point, and there's a little drop down menu called options. And what we can do is tell Blender to only affect locations, which means that if I scale these objects, it's actually not going to resize them. It's only going to reposition them. So now I can do stuff like this, where I can just move things really close together and I can rotate them and place them wherever I want. Doesn't matter. And this also works for, expanding things outward and spreading things out. And one last thing that I want to cover here. So something you might notice is that if you rotate something and then hit the move button, you'll notice that this gizmo stays the same regardless. Like it does not change. But there might be cases where you want to rotate something and then be able to move it perfectly in line with the orientation of the thing that you've just rotated. So that's where it can be useful to change this from global to local. So now when I go into move mode, you notice that the orientation of these arrows is different. So if I select an individual thing here, this is going to be oriented relative to the orientation of this object. So if I rotate this, like if you go to try to rotate these things, it's not going to work. You got to remember that this options thing affects all of these transform tools. So if I go to uncheck locations, now I am free to rotate this thing. Anyways, uh, if I click move, and I have this set to local, it's always going to point the arrows relative to the direction of the object. As I switch between rotate and move mode, you see that it's making the gizmo change as a result of that. Um, so there's other stuff here too, and like normal is like the face of the polygon or whatever, but most of the time you're only going to be using global and local here. So I hope that helps. And yeah, happy map editing. Yes, do it.